So as you already heard, my name is Marco Tempest, and I am a cyber illusionist and the founder of the MagicLab in New York City. I create magical experiences that gives us insights into the way humans and technology interact. A lot of what I do when I'm not on stage presenting is helping organizations bring their technological stories to life. I work with augmented and virtual reality, gestural sensing, robotics, augmented intelligence, machine learning, and a whole host of other interesting technologies to create stories and experiences that are dynamic, clear, memorable, and seemingly impossible. Today, I'd like to talk about the creative framework or mindset for creating these experiences. How do you go about inventing the impossible? Now, I've been inventing impossible things for most of my life. Before I moved into technology, I worked as a professional magician, and I found that most of my time was spent problem solving. That is the nature of magic, solving impossible problems. It's a specialized skill that combines technology and psychology in unorthodox ways to create an experience that the audience interprets as magical. In magic, we talk about the effect our illusions have on the audience. In technology, we talk about the user experience. Now, to create magic, we look for gaps in what we know to be true, because it is in those gaps that the impossibilities lie. Now, to do that, we must be curious. We want to know about everything. We collect esoteric knowledge. Now, this knowledge, accumulated over centuries, is readily shared with colleagues. There are literally thousands of books on the topics, hundreds of journals, countless videos. No other performing art is so well documented. Magicians were in a way the pioneers of the open source community. Today, I'd like to share 3 applications that have been developed at the MagicLab. They involve psychology, technology, and storytelling. And they allow us to experience magic, to experience the impossible. And before I continue, I want to make sure that you're going to get your questions, comments, suggestions in. Please use the chat box in your browser. I would love to have a little conversation at the end of my presentation. So let's get started with psychology. Magic tricks are field experiments in psychology. The goal is to control what the audience sees and thinks. We manipulate behavior and environment to produce a moment of magic, a moment that seems impossible. Now, those moments of astonishment are derived from hundreds, if not thousands, of live performances. It's only recently that psychologists have begun to look into the way magicians achieve their effects. And what they are discovering is that magicians have been using psychological principles in covered ways for hundreds of years. For example, psychologists began to explore what is known as change blindness as late as the 80s.
Change blindness is a perceptual phenomenon that occurs when a change in a visual stimulus is introduced, and the observer does not notice it.
But magicians have been using this principle in their performances since the early 1900s. So let me show you an effect devised in 1905, more than 100 years ago, by a magician called Henry Hardin. Henry called himself the Prince of Ideas, hence the trick is called the Prince's Card Trick. And you can all play along. So this is how it goes. I prepared 5 virtual playing cards, and I want you all to remember one of these 5 cards. Remember the suit and the value of your chosen card. And make up your mind now. Don't forget your card. The card's going to get mixed up, and I'm going to remove one of these 5 cards. How about maybe this one here? Now, if I was right, then your card has disappeared. Did your card disappear? Well, don't worry about it. My card disappeared too. So what did just happen? Well, as I said, this trick is an old one. And it works because while focusing on one card, we fail to recall the others. That's what psychologists call change blindness. The tricks of magicians are not designed to fool the eye. The eye observes whatever is put in front of it. The brain then translates that scene into information. But the brain can be lazy looking for familiar patterns in what it sees in order to save time and energy. In the case of the princess card trick, the brain recognizes elements and assumes that the things it sees now are exactly the same as the things it has seen before. Magic exploits our lazy thinking in many different ways. The magician designs tricks so that everything about them seems familiar. The apparatus seems ordinary. The magician's actions seem above suspicion. Even the words he uses seem straightforward and unambiguous. But this veneer of ordinariness covers many deceptions. So the eye sees everything, but the brain is being fooled. Or as Sherlock Holmes said to Dr. Watson,
"You see, but you do not observe."
Exactly. So before I move on, I want to make sure, please keep these questions coming, comments, suggestions. Gonna get to them at the end of the presentation. I'd like to try something a little different next. Maybe I can do a little demo. All right, let's talk for a moment about using magic to prototype the future. And for this, I have to go to my living room. So what is impossible today might very well be possible tomorrow. As I moved from being a magician to a technologist, I asked myself a question. What role is there for the magician in a world where technology makes anything possible? Like the science fiction writer, magicians are always looking to the future. Even with all our technology, that will always be things that are impossible today. And that's where magic comes in. So let's see if I can create the illusion of the future for you now. Now, 100 years ago, that would have been the magic of levitation. Is it possible to create illusions in a world where technology makes anything possible? Jump. Now, if you know how the trick is done, where is the illusion? But still, our imagination is more powerful than our reasoning. And it's easy to attribute personality to machines. These are quadcopters, but they are more than mechanical flying machines. They analyze the environment around them and react to everything I do. Advanced algorithm allow these autonomous machines to fly in close formation, aware of each other, aware of me. Mathematics that can be mistaken for intelligence, and intelligence for personality. Anthropomorphism, that's the illusion. An illusion created by technology and embroidered by our imagination to become an intelligent flying robot, a machine that appears to be alive. I think they say hello. Hey guys. That's it. I think it's time to go home. Okay, everybody. How about right over here? Come on. Can you do that? Everybody, One after the other. Come on. No pushing. One after the other. You can fit in there. No pushing. There you go. Very nice. Very nice. And no sleeping out here. And that's it. Okay, that went sufficiently well. Make myself back up. While I do, let's talk a little bit about what just happened. So one of the problems when interacting with technology is that we can't read a machine the same way we can read our fellow humans. We can't read a machine's intent, and that makes us feel uncomfortable. In this demonstration, we interact with technology as we might interact with our pets. But we're not yet at a stage where we can build drones that follow our every thought, command, or gesture. But as you've seen, we can simulate this experience using illusion. At the MagicLab, we think of these simulations as ways to prototype the future, a way to field test our relationship with advanced technology. We can create the illusion that the technology is much more sophisticated than it is, and we can study how people react to it. How would they behave if such a thing was possible? So in this particular proof of concept, we wanted to visualize close human interaction with a swarm of drones. A timely topic and something that is difficult to do because of the obvious safety issues. So we utilize toy drones, which have downward-facing cameras that can track the pattern on the magic carpet you see on the floor. The carpet enables each of the drones to self-localize. Each vehicle has its own internal flight planner and is completely independent. It creates a very robust system. It's easy to set up and has no single point of failure. The demonstration came about because of my own curiosity. What were the limits of autonomous flying machines? What could the future of this technology look like? And could I use illusion to render that future in real time now? I mentioned the importance of collaboration earlier. This robust drone system was devised with the aid of some very talented programmers and engineers. The same is true for many of my projects. When you work with diverse talents, they not only bring specific skills to the project, but also different views, different perspectives. When you're developing anything, I think it's important to listen. And not just to the loudest voices, but to the quietest whispers. A good idea can come from anywhere. So too can good advice. But it is the mindset of the magician that brings us the illusion of anthropomorphism. It's the willingness to ask, what does it take to go beyond the possible and make today's technology do the seemingly impossible? It reminds me of something that Arthur C. Clarke said. The only way to discover the limits of the possible is to go beyond them, into the impossible. And I think that's a mindset that anyone can adopt. All right, I want to bring this up one more time. I see we already have a lot of questions and comments, so please keep them coming. And let's move on. Let's talk about storytelling. So when I create a magic effect, what I'm really doing is try to control how the brain thinks about a given situation. I'm creating a narrative of events that I want you to remember by highlighting certain events and hiding others. I emphasize the impossible experience and direct the attention away from the mechanics. That's why it's difficult to figure out how tricks are done. The information you need was seen but not observed. Now, I've used the idea of creating narratives in other areas of my work. People do not remember data, but they do remember stories and they share them with their friends. It's built into our DNA, and we can use storytelling not only to entertain, but also to better describe the work we do to the wider world. We can also use technology to enhance the storytelling experience. We already do that in radio, movie, theater, but new technologies create new platforms for storytelling. So with that in mind, let me tell you a story about magic. Let me set this up. All right, so this is going to be a demonstration of augmented reality. All right. All right. Augmented reality is the melding of the real world with computer-generated imagery. It seems the perfect medium to investigate magic and ask why in a technological age we continue to have this magical sense of wonder. Now, magic is deception, but it is a deception we enjoy. To enjoy being deceived, an audience must first suspend its disbelief. It was the poet Samuel Taylor Coleridge who first suggested this receptive state of mind.
I try to convey a semblance of truth in my writing, to produce for these shadows of the imagination a willing suspension of disbelief that, for a moment, constitutes poetic faith.
This faith in the fictional is essential for any kind of theatrical experience. Without it, a script is just words. Virtual reality, just the latest technology. And sleight of hand is just an artful demonstration of dexterity. Now, we are all very good at suspending our disbelief. We do it every day while reading novels, watching television, or going to the movies. We willingly enter fictional worlds where we cheer our heroes and cry for friends we never had. Without this ability, there is no magic. It was Jean-Robert Houdin, France's greatest illusionist, who first recognized the role of the magician as a storyteller. He said,
"A conjurer is not a juggler. He is an actor playing the part of a magician."
Which means magic is theater, and every trick is a story. The tricks of magic follow the archetypes of narrative fiction. They are tales of creation and loss, death and resurrection, and obstacles that must be overcome. Many of them are intensely dramatic. Magicians play with fire and steel, defy the fury of the buzzsaw, dare to catch a bullet, or attempt a deadly escape. But audiences don't come to see the magician die. They come to see him live, because the best stories always have a happy ending. The tricks of magic have one special element. They are stories with a twist. Now, Edward de Bono argued that our brains are pattern matching machines. He said that magicians deliberately exploit the way their audiences think.
Stage magic relies almost wholly on the momentum error. The audience is led to make assumptions or elaborations that are perfectly reasonable, but do not, in fact, match what is being done in front of them.
In that respect, magic tricks are like jokes. Jokes lead us down a path to an expected destination. But when the scenario we have imagined suddenly flips into something entirely unexpected, we laugh. The same thing happens when people watch magic tricks. The finale defies logic, gives new insights into the problem, and audiences express their amazement with laughter. It's fun to be fooled. Now, one of the key qualities of all stories is that they are made to be shared. We feel compelled to tell them. So when I do a trick at a party, that person will immediately pull their friend over and ask me to do it again. They want to share the experience. Makes my job more difficult, because if I want to surprise them, I need to tell a story that starts the same, but ends differently. A trick with a twist on a twist. Keeps me busy. Now, experts believe that stories go beyond the capacity for keeping us entertained. We think in narrative structures. We connect events and emotions and instinctively transform them into a sequence that can be easily understood. It's a uniquely human achievement. We all want to share our stories, whether it is the trick we saw at the party, the bad day at the office, or the beautiful sunset we saw on vacation. Now today, thanks to technology, we can share those stories like never before by email, Facebook, blogs, tweets, the tools of social networking. These are the digital campfires around which the audience gathers to hear our stories. We turn facts into simile and metaphor and even fantasy. We polish the rough edges of our lives so that they feel whole. Our stories make us the people we are, and sometimes the people we want to be. They give us our identity and a sense of community. And if the story is a good one, it might even make us smile. All right, let's switch this over again. Okay, so one of my favorite authors is Lewis Carroll. He loved puzzles, logic, and mathematical recreations. He also loved magic, and he brought all those passions together in his children's books, where he gave young minds a space to exercise their imagination. One of his most famous lines is from Alice Through the Looking Glass. It's there that Alice says,
"There's no use trying. One can't believe impossible things."
but the Queen told Alice that perhaps she hadn't had enough practice. She said,
"When I was younger, I always did it for half an hour a day. Why, sometimes I believed as many as 6 impossible things before breakfast."
magicians start young. Children believe impossible things. But you don't have to become a magician to think like one. You just have to believe that nothing is impossible. That is the mindset of the magician. That is the starting point of invention. It's a position of hope and confidence that a problem can be solved. For me, and I hope for you, this seems like a good place to begin. Nothing is impossible. This magical mindset is more than a philosophy. To create impossibilities, we use science and psychology and wrap them in story. And while we employ those elements in unexpected ways, every seeming impossibility is reached by a series of practical steps. These steps include curiosity, collaboration, diversity of thought, sharing, storytelling, and focusing on the user experience. These steps are not exclusive to the world of magic. Lewis Carroll dreamed of impossible things, and so can you. So here are my takeaways. First, stay curious. Take the time to look beyond the world around us, to see beneath the surface, peek behind the curtain. In magic, we truly believe that nothing is as it seems. There is always a different way, and there is always more than one destination. Second is collaboration. You can't do it alone. Magic, like many arts, is a multidisciplinary craft. It involves many different challenges: invention, construction, writing, performing, choreography, lighting, sound, video, and so on. You seek out the best people to help. I have worked with technologists, graphic designers, software engineers, film producers, actors, writers, marketeers. Collaboration is invaluable. You'll be amazed at the insights that can be brought to a project from outside your own working sphere. Now, although everyone on the team has their speciality, I think it's important that everyone feels they can input wherever necessary. Fresh eyes on a problem will help avoid groupthink. So I might start on a project in a particular role, storyteller or videographer, but then move into another role, perhaps the user experience or another technical role. Now, this gives me an overview of the project and alerts me to both problems and opportunities early on. So view every project from as many different aspects as you can. That way you avoid surprises later. Storytelling. The value of storytelling cannot be underestimated. Storytelling should be a core competency of every organization. It should be included at the beginning of a project or product development. Storytelling harmonizes the multiple interests and goals that people have and keeps everyone on board with a mission narrative. A story gives us a purpose and the audience an experience to remember. Now, I found a lot of help in the open source community where ideas, technology, and software are shared. At the MagicLab, we have an open door policy. We listen to every idea, we collaborate, and we share. If we don't know how to do something, we reach out. The result is a network of supporters and experts in every field that make our work better. People are unbelievably giving, and sharing discoveries is something I wholeheartedly subscribe to. In Magic, the user experience is everything. Every performance in Magic is a field test. That's where theory meets the reality of human behavior. It's also the place where we receive face-to-face feedback. And believe me, it can be tough, but it's also essential. The only real test of a project is when it leaves the lab and meets the outside world. And that's when people who haven't been indoctrinated by groupthink will have their say. Now, we go through great lengths to ensure that the user experience is not only good, but uniform. Whether we're creating an experience for one spectator or an audience of thousands. New technologies are not required to create magic and illusions, nor do we need them to solve many other problems. I would argue that many of our engineering problems are in fact liberal arts or design problems. We must always remember the role that human psychology plays in any interaction. The user experience is paramount. We are creating a planet filled with incredible technological devices. The problems we have relate to the way these devices interface with the people who use them. That is our challenge. In conclusion, the art and craft of magic has survived every age because it understands people. It is absolutely focused on the user experience. I don't think magic will ever disappear. No matter how much technology changes, human beings stay the same. They always want magic, and they always give it a space in their imagination. This desire isn't restricted to magic. The world has a thirst for wonder that is insatiable. It is part of what leads us to creating new digital services, movies, technology, and hardware. It's why audiences applaud and cheer at tech lounges. Our users want to be excited and amazed as each new future is unveiled. A magical mindset will get you there. So, stay curious, collaborate, invite others to share the journey with you, create an engine of thought from a diversity of skills and multiplicity of ideas. It will take you beyond the possible. Keep your eye on the destination, but listen to the quietest whispers as well as the loudest cries. The bumps in the road will be so much smoother, and when you reach your goal, share it. The world is waiting to be astonished. Thank you very much for listening to my presentation today and for joining us online. And I think we're going to have some questions coming in to have a little bit of a conversation. Thank you very much. All right. So I have a question from KCO. Wow, are the drones reacting to your voice or body gesture, or are they pre-programmed? So the short answer is I have a wonderful piece of software which runs in Unity. So thank you to the sponsor, which was created by a company in the south of France called Tronisos. It's an authoring system for pre-programmed drones. However, I had a 4-year journey coming to this particular solution where we had like a priori path planning with drones, with motion capture systems on stage, with lots of point of failures. And I just had to trim it down more and more and more to have the most safe, stable solution. So you could say it's the illusion of interactivity you're experiencing when you're watching my drones. They would do everything they do without me even being there. However, I hope it gives the feeling of how it would be if they would be listening to me and to my commands. So thank you for the question. I think we have another question coming in from Anna. Can the illusion of what the future looks like be used to manage the fears of the advancement of technology? Probably. So I think the drones are a very good example. It's very topical piece, like we also Black Mirror, which is another way to think about drones for sure. I thought it would be great to bring drones on stage and say, okay, how is that? Is that creepy? Is that delightful? Can we imagine that these kind of flying robots might be interacting in our environments with us? So in that sense, I think this kind of prototyping the future, or just artists taking near future technology, or what the industry would call the art of the possible, and then doing their own thing and adding their own stories to it will certainly kind of mitigate the possibilities and hopefully not just prevent fear, but maybe even influence the trajectory of where these technologies will go in the near future. So thank you for the question. How much prep time was needed for this? For this today, so much. I was incredibly nervous, of course. This is kind of like a live conference appearance, but I'm in this tiny little room in my home, right? And next door is Carmen, who's helping me with this. Hello, Carmen. She's my producer, so we're both running queues and clicking around on our computers. There's a big fan making sure that my Mac is not overheating. So there was a lot of prep involved, but I would say the prep was more kind of learning new things and hopefully staying curious about all the things which didn't work the first time around. So I hope my mouth is in sync with my audio, and I hope that the video somehow made it across. So a lot of work, but a lot of play as well. We're going to have another question from Lake. Magic is often based on memorizing and posing. How much of your positioning for the AR effect is pre-planned? So the system we saw with this contraption here is it's turned off now. Is actually it's a playback system which works in chapters. So each chapter has a few states it looks for. There's a Kinect type sensor here and the HD camera, and then there's a MacBook which does all the compositing. And so each scene gives me a few actions. So one scene might look for my palms coming together and then triggering something. Another one might want me to go from left to right at a certain angle from one area to the other. One will make sure my face is visible so it can trigger the next scene. So in a sense, it's pre-recorded, but interactive enough for me to stay interesting and give me a little bit of headroom for interpretation on how I want to speed up or slow down or interact with the digital content, so to speak. And I'm going to have another question from Alison. How do you think technology and magic intersect or overlap? So I'm not sure who said this, but kind of every, well, Arthur Clarke said that sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. And I think that's where the overlap is. It's kind of new technologies tend to be magical when we first see them. and in that sense offer a lot of opportunities for a magician to kind of create a use case which would be specific for magic. In other words, kind of subverts the use of a technology to make it do something to enable a magical story or an insight into a near future, in my respect. I also have to say that a lot of my magic is really not so much aimed at blowing your mind with something you had absolutely no idea how it was done. It's more kind of showing magical possibilities that these kind of technologies offer in order to tell stories or to entertain and delight. So thank you for the question, Alison. And then Sophia asked, what software does MagicLab use to create these experiences? So it's the usual suspects. I think everything which is computer vision and needs heavy processing and where you really want to do your own kind of thing. There would be like Open Frameworks is a fantastic tool. It's this kind of C++ library which enables new media artists to do incredible work. I also want to do a shout out to Zach Lieberman and Enrico Viola, who helped put together the story magic piece and many of the other pieces you saw in the little clips today. So Open Frameworks is fantastic. And then everything which involves kind of augmented reality or virtual reality. There are incredible tool sets, of course, with Unity and with Unreal Engine, which are just very good entry points if you want to kind of have the complex functionality kind of readily available to play with. There's one more tool I might want to mention, which is Isodora, which is a kind of a node-based programming tool which runs on Mac and Windows. It's a fantastic way to kind of wire up something you might be doing in Open Frameworks without any of the programming, where you can pull in a gestural sensor like a Kinect and connect it to video streams, or use OSC messages and send it to it and receive messages and work with multiple computers. So that's actually also a wonderful piece of software. So Evan is asking, being in a global community of creators, magicians, what new technologies and explorations of the impossible from your peers has you most excited? So currently, all the magicians are at home, right? They're doing what we are all doing. They're socially isolating. But there is a large community of magicians who have come together to create a forum for video chat magic. And the kinds of things they come up with is just absolutely remarkable, like how to translate an experience from being so close and intimate with your audience and then using technology to make that a little closer. And some of the examples are magicians who send out magic boxes for their Zoom meetings, and you join the Zoom meeting, and when it's time to open that box, something magical happens with the physical thing which you got in the mail. There are magicians who write software for other magicians, things which are very similar to what you've seen today. But there's also a lot of essays and a lot of thinking about this new modality going on in the circle of magicians. And I think, again, this expands beyond the world of magic. Like, we all have these problems now. How do we bridge the cultural deficit which happens when we can only meet like this, right? And I'm super nervous here. I don't even know how big my audience is and who's out there, or who has left and is on the fridge drinking a Coke right now and stopped watching my talk. So how do we keep these connections alive? What kind of tools? So magicians are really doing a lot in that respect, and it's just wonderful to see how much activity is going on in my own field. What has completely astonished you recently? Well, what astonished me is how some of the organizations deal with the situation we're in. So there's been a couple of TED Talks which completely blew my mind, where there are TED Talks happening which are not in front of a live audience, but where the story needs to be told of what's what's close and important and what's far away and what needs a different angle and what needs a prop. So I think organizations like TED have been experimenting with this in an incredible way. Like there's almost a new renaissance of what's going on there. And then there's the world of podcasts, right? Which to me is the perfect virtual reality, these incredible podcasts which are happening. So maybe not so much in the world of magic, but in the world of other media like podcasts and TED. So thank you, Glenn, for this. Daniel is asking, what is your culture of collaborating with someone with a very different background or skill set? That's a super good question. So the natural tendency, right, is always to bring somebody in for a specific task, right? So I need somebody who can do this. And then you bring them in and you define that task, and then they might just be doing that task. And the chance that you miss out on so much when you're doing it that way is very large. So I think a good way is to bring somebody in and be curious about a collaboration, even if you already kind of know where this person could fit in your team or what kind of their area of expertise will be. But learn a little more and be kind of inquisitive of what they might think about your work or what they might think about this type of work in general, and what they have thought about this topic before, or what other topics they think would lend themselves to it. I have a piece, a collaboration where I try to tell the story of Nikola Tesla with a pop-up book which comes to life, which has projection mapping on it, and it required a lot of papercraft. And I reached out to this papercraft designer in Germany through Skype. I found him through a Facebook post. And we had long conversations about art and storytelling and paper engineering. And it was not just asking him to make that book with these 5 predefined scenes, but kind of in that sense, a true collaboration where you could come out the other end with new skills for yourself and something you're not the only one to be proud of. So thanks for that question. Ruben is asking, how do you foster happy accidents and improvisation when performing with technology? Well, yeah, that's delicate, right? Because like you saw, a lot of what I did today was very, very scripted, while I encourage spontaneity and improvisation. I also find a lot of comfort in being scripted and sort of like kind of making every second count. Like going in front of an audience, for me, that's not so much the moment where I can just let loose. I can be myself and be very comfortable in this little world I create. But I think the experimenting and the improvisation that typically happens at the lab, when kind of going to play, goofing around with stuff and trying new things and creating tool sets that support that. So a lot of times when we think about traditional production methods where you start with a script and create, have your music composed and hire your voiceover talent, and then by the time you see your piece the very first time, and you see that it's not what you want, you might have to start from scratch. So creating these kind of pipelines which allow for fast iteration, I think that's kind of the magical thing to allow for improvisation within kind of digital or new media art. Like create a tool which you can truly play in, like a piece of software or a workflow, a pipeline, which allows for you to experiment until the very last moment. And then for myself, then I try to lock it in and kind of make it count, right, when I'm in front of the audience. So thank you for the question. And Renan, sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name. You say, usually magic is not taught. What sources do you recommend to learn more about the concept of magic? So there are many magic communities online, which you can kind of tap in. There's also a lot of books out there and libraries on magic. So I think just a basic Google search will kind of, will open up a world which you thought was so secretive. There's actually As I said in my presentation, magicians love to publish, and most of these things are readily available. Some people say like the biggest secrets of magic, they're hidden away in books which anybody could have access to. All right, and Leon is asking, what was the first magic trick you ever performed? I started with a magic kit I got at a flea market when I was like 6 years old, and stood in front of a mirror pretending I was a magician. And that kind of set me off the path to where I am today. Okay, is this it? That was the last question. Oh, here's one more. What was the... Okay, oh yeah, so I think that's it. So thank you very much again to SIGGRAPH for inviting me to be presenting to you today and to talking to you today. I hope you had a great time. I certainly had. This is super memorable, and thank you again for joining, and please stay safe. Thank you. Bye-bye, everybody.